All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today we are going to be finishing off World War One. Okay, we're going to be looking at basically what happened, the treaty that was signed, and the repercussions, or I should say, the foreshadowing of repercussions that's going to follow, and basically start World War Two. All right, so let's go ahead and look at your objectives. All right, we're going to analyze the reason why Russia got out of the war. Then we're going to examine the importance of the Treaty of Versailles, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. And then we're going to create an argument on whether the end of the war was actually predestined. What I mean by that was there a clue in the past, you know, that basically said the war is going to end on this day? And I'm going to show you something. So it might kind of be like, wait, what? It might blow your mind a little bit. This is some of those things that you see on YouTube and TikTok and things like that, but this one's actually true. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the lesson. All right, so here's your warm-up picture. The first question asks you to analyze this picture and tell me what you see. Okay, so break it down. There's some things you see on the bottom, something on the person, that should help you out. The second question says, in your opinion, do you think this guy is like waking up, you know, like just barely waking up and just like stretching and this and that? Or does it look like to you that they're angry and they're like yelling, you know, what do you think? How do you interpret this picture? So take a moment, pause the video, write your responses, okay? Because we're gonna actually be moving on in a second, actually in three, two, one. All right. So really quickly, April 1915 at the Second Battle of Yevs. This is the first time that poison gas is used. This is when mustard gas is used. Soldiers that who didn't die from it told their commanding officer, I can't see, I'm choking, I was throwing up. You know, those people who died, they got their bodies and realized that hey, there's fluid in their lungs, you know, and they've come to realize that these guys died not from bullets but from this gas. So again, the fumes, if you didn't die from it, caused you to go blind, caused you to vomit, to choke, and things like that, made it hard for you to breathe and scarred your lungs and so on that, which we talked about before. The thing is, though, that's significant, besides that this is the first time that gas was used in a battle, but also that ever since April 1915, gas masks have been a necessary part to a soldier equipment when they've gone to war. Okay. Now, if you know anyone who's gone into the military, who's done the boot camp, and training and stuff like that, who's been in the Army, Marines, things like that, they'll tell you, if you ask them about the training with the gas, when they put the gas mask on, and they'll tell you, okay, you had so many seconds to put on your mask. If it wasn't on right, wasn't on secure, the gas was going to go in and you were going to cough, you were going to throw up, or whatever the effects of the gas was. Um, so yeah, still to this day, they train the soldiers how to put on gas masks and put it on correctly. Okay, so again, since April 1915, over 100 years, our soldiers have been using gas masks. Okay. Now, I thought I mentioned this before in an earlier lesson, but apparently I didn't. So I'm going to bring it on here. In 1916, tanks were introduced by Britain. Okay. Now, again, tanks looked intimidating. Big old metal vehicle looking thing, right? But again, they were very slow. They were not reliable. They were destroyed quite easily. If you, like I said in class, if you played the game Battlefield 1, excuse me, I believe it's like in the first campaign, the first or second or third campaign, you're on the you're on the tank, and every so often you have to fix the tank. You have to get out of there while gunfire is going off and you got to fix the tank. That's true. That's one thing I have to say about that game that they got pretty accurately, is that the tank would always break down and people would have to fix them, you know. Um, Also, another thing too, if you remember from previous lessons, when the U.S. was not in the war, the German U-boats would sink passenger ships, merchant ships, and things like that. But once the U.S. got into the war, none of the ships, battleships, destroyer ships that had soldiers on them were sunk when they went to Europe. None of them. Now, what's the difference between a battleship and a cruise ship? And it's the weapons. Battleships have weapons that are made to go against U-boats and other ships, whereas the passenger ships have no weapons. So they're basically defenseless in the water. All right. Now, March 1917, things started getting really bad for Russia. Now, I don't know if you guys remember from the last lessons, um, the Tsar of Russia basically told his wife, "Hey, I'll take care of the war. You take care of everything else in Russia. People need food. You give them food. People need, um, clothing, things like that. Help them out. If roads need to be rebuilt, make sure they're rebuilt." It's not that the wife didn't do a good job. It's just there was too much going on. Food was going to the soldiers, not really for the civilians. Fuel that was used to heat people's homes was used to put into tanks and used to and the battlefield and stuff like that. So there's a lot of Russian people who are really getting upset because, again, their husbands, sons, were dying. Uh, the war, it's like no one's winning it, really. They're at a standstill. The people have no food. Their fuel is basically gone. And it's just like, why are we in this war? So a lot of Russians were contemplating, like, why are we here? What's the purpose? And some of them were looking at, like, maybe we should get out of the war. All right, so question number one. Before the war started, the U.S. had a lot of passenger and merchant ships that were destroyed, but the carriers and battleships weren't destroyed by German U-boats. So do you think that passenger and merchant ships, do you think they should have some type of defensive weapons on them at all times? Like, even now, even to this day, do you think that ships that take people on cruises, or the ships that have like cargo on it, you know, should they have defensive weapons on them? Why not? And yes, like I told the classes today and yesterday, piracy, pirates, they still go on to this very day. They're not like how they are like in Jack Sparrow and Pirates of the Caribbean. No, no, no. They're like nowadays, the regular people. Instead of with the little flintlock guns, they have real guns and things like that, and they do try to take over ships and things like that. So what do you think? Should they have some form of defensive weapons on them at all times? Cruise ships, merchant ships, cargo ships. And tell me why. Why do you say yes or why do you say no? And I want you to really think about it. Okay? Should they have it? So think about it, write your response, pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so that guy right there in the picture, that is Vladimir Lenin. He is the leader of the Bolshevik party. That's how you say that word, Bolshevik. Uh, and he eventually overthrew the Russian government. So the Tsar, the wife, and all them, yeah, they got rid of him. That whole story you hear about Anastasia, the princess who, her family was killed, she got away. Yeah, that didn't happen. She died. Okay. But this guy is the one who took over for them. And he established the communist government. Okay. Now, communism, if you guys don't know, which I would be surprised if you did, um, Communism is a form of government in which the government controls all aspects, all businesses, all like drilling for minerals and like that. Everything belongs to the government. Their belief is that everyone should have a job. There should be no class structure. There shouldn't be a very rich and a very poor and things like that. Um, they believe that the wealth should be distributed. Things like that. On paper, that sounds amazing, right? But in reality, the real thing, it's not that great. For a great example, yes, everyone should get a job. Everyone can have a job. Awesome. But you don't get to pick your job. They tell you you're going to be this, you're going to do this. You know, you don't really get to pick your job because they're like, well, we don't need more artists. You know, we don't need more singers. We need more field workers. We need more factory workers. We need more of this and that. So, yeah, you don't get to pick. Okay. But once he is the leader, his first act is to get Russia out of the war. So they basically tell Germany, hey, we're out. Okay, we want out of this war. We want to sign a treaty. Now, this is the greatest news Germany could get. Okay. And they basically say, okay, sure, no problem, Russia, we'll sign a treaty with you to get you out of this war. But in this treaty, we want stuff. Because again, you are quitting, so we want this stuff. So on March 3rd, 1918, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, I believe that's how you say it, was signed with Germany. Now, what happened with that treaty? Basically, Russia lost a lot of land, a lot of territory. It gave up Ukraine. It gave up Finland, Polish territory, as well as Baltic territory. Now, you may not know where this area is. That's fine. But the thing is, just take my word for it. It's a lot of land that Russia gave up. Now, with that being done, Germany is like no longer has to look on both sides, okay? Because again, they were fighting the Russians over here, and then they were fighting the French, American, and British over here. So they were fighting on both sides, both sides. Now that Russia is done, they could focus on the British, French, and Americans. But here's the thing, though. If you've ever watched a fight, boxing, a match, MMA, whatever, do those fighters have the same energy when they start? Do they have the same energy at the very, very end? 3 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever. Are they going to have the same energy? And the answer is no. They are not going to have that energy. It's going to dwindle down. Same thing with the hype that soldiers get when they go to war. Yeah, first they're like, yeah, let's do this. Come on. They have the braveness and things like that. They have that energy. But as time goes on and they've survived battles, they've seen things, and they've seen the horrors of war, that eagerness, that energy, it dies down. And that's basically what happens with Germany. They've lost a lot of people. The soldiers that were fighting in Russia, now, hey, now you got to go to this other side of the world and fight over there. And they're like, oh my God. So on July 15th, 1918, the German troops give one last push, one last to attack of French and American soldiers. They're trying to break the line. They don't do it. Okay, happens at the second battle of Marne. So Germany tries to bust through the line. They don't. They fall back. Then 3 days later, 3 days later, the French and American troops are like, "Hey, let's hit them back. They hit us. We should hit them back." And they do. And Germany then starts running backwards. And this is the beginning of the end of World War I. Because now the French and Americans know the Germans are done. They're running backwards. It says staying on the line, showing power, showing strength. They're falling backwards. So that shows them, hey, we just got to keep going. We have them on the ropes. All right, so here's your next question. What are some possible reasons why the Allies would wait 3 days before doing a counterattack on the Germans? So the Germans come, boom. They try to make a hole, they don't. So they fall back. And then again, 3 days later, the Americans and the French attack them. So why wait 3 days? Why? So think of some scenarios, some reasons why they would wait that long. Okay, so think about it. Write your response, pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so President Woodrow Wilson presented a plan that was called the 14 points. And the very last point called for a League of Nations. Okay, what the League of Nations purpose was that it would help preserve peace and prevent future wars by pledging to respect and protect each other's territories and political independence. So when, let's say, America, France, Britain, Belgium, Russia, Italy, Spain, let's say they all join the League of Nations. If another country, let's say Austria, says we want to take over Italy, well, Italy's a part of the league. Then all the other countries would join up and be like, okay, Austria, you need to calm down because if you go to war with Italy, you're going to war with us. And that would be, in a sense, kind of making the other countries go, oh, no, 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 we don't want any trouble with you guys, because we're supposed to have a war with Italy. We want a war with Italy. We don't want a war with all you guys. Well, they're in our league. We made an agreement, so we're here. So yeah, so you pick a fight with one of those countries, you're going to pick a fight with every one of them. Okay. So that was Wilson's 14 points, especially the League of Nations. Now, the next country to quit is the Ottoman Empire. They basically tell the Allies, okay, guys, we're done. Our soldiers are spent. Our economy's in the toilet. Yeah, we're done with this war. So they sign a treaty and they stop. Then on November 4th, Austria-Hungary, the country that basically one of the two countries that started the war, they reach an armistice. Now, what is an armistice? It's an agreement to stop fighting, a truce. Okay? They're not in a sense surrendering, they're just saying, okay, you stop fighting, I'll stop fighting. So if you have little brothers, sisters, older brothers, sisters, and you like hit one, you hit them or they hit you, and then you retaliate back, and then they hit you back, and then you hit them back, and it keeps going back and forth, and all of a sudden, like your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever comes in, you're like, okay, stop, stop. And you guys both stop. That's an armistice. That's a truce. You guys are still, you may be hitting each other later on that day, but for that moment, for that time, you guys both agree, I won't hit you if you don't hit me, especially if someone's there, you're going to call a truce. Hey, that's what armistice means. You're not saying I'm done fighting. You're just saying I won't hit you if you won't hit me. Let's stop fighting temporarily. That's what it is. And then eventually, Austria-Hungary does surrender. Now, so basically with this armistice, Austria-Hungary is out of the war. All that's left is Germany. And Germany continues the fight, but only for about another week after the Austria-Hungary armistice. So Germany is like, okay, you know what? We can't take on everyone. All right, we want armistice as well. All right. So the Allies get together for this Paris Peace Conference, and they basically say, okay, let's build a post-war world where, hey, no more future wars like this could happen. So they all agree. United States, Britain, Belgium, France, Italy, they all agree. But the thing is, France, they got a little score to settle. They want to show some might. Because if you remember from like a month and a half ago, um, Germany humiliated France. And I asked you that question. Do you think France is going to get revenge and win? This is now the time where France is going to get revenge on Germany. Because again, Germany is the last country to surrender. So on June 28th, 1919, at the Treaty of Versailles, basically, Germany is stripped of any type of armed services. So no soldiers. No soldiers whatsoever. They had to pay reparations. What's reparations? Basically, they had to pay the bill for everyone. The Americans, British, French, Belgium, Italians, Russians. So they had to pay back all that money for tanks, planes, paying for the soldiers, paying for ammunition, repairing the buildings, all that stuff. They have to pay for it. And then, just to give them one little last shot, France made sure that Germany acknowledged and told the world, yes, World War I happened because of us. If you remember, no, Germany didn't start the war. That was Serbia and Austria-Hungary. They're the two who went at each other first. Then Germany joined in to support Austria-Hungary. But again, France wants to really rub it into Germany. So they basically tell them, you have to accept all responsibility and say you were the ones who started this war. So Germany does. This is going to play a vital role when we get into World War II, which is going to be like a week or so. So yeah. Now, for the League of Nations, several countries joined up. Britain, Belgium, France, and Russia. Okay, they all joined up. The one country that should have but didn't was the United States. The United States did not join. Even though the President of the United States is the one who thought of this League of Nations, the United States didn't join. And the thing is, as someone in class asked me, I thought the president can do that kind of stuff. Yes, the president can declare war and the president can sign treaties or make treaties. But Congress has to approve the war and Congress has to approve the treaties. This is part of the checks and balances that goes on with our government. So again, the whole idea that a president's all powerful, they can do whatever they want. No, no. They need Congress's approval, and this is one of the reasons. Okay. Now, the reason why a lot of Americans did not like this treaty is because, again, this whole League of Nations, if something happened in, let's say, against Italy, we would have to join in and fight. And a lot of Americans were like, no, what happens in Europe should stay in Europe. What does France, Britain, Italy, Belgium, all them, what does that got to do with us? Absolutely nothing. So if they get into some crap, why should we get into that same muck? We shouldn't. That's their problem. Let them handle it. Let us take care of us. And they told their senators and their representatives, if you vote for this treaty, we will not vote you in next time. And you have to remember, these politicians, they love their cushy jobs, so they vote against the treaty. That's why the United States did not join. Oh, and one more thing. So here's another thing too. That car you see at the bottom, that is the car where Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated in. That's the whole reason why World War I started. Remember, he got killed in there. Now, if you look on the license plates, which you see that little white box, it says A111118. Okay. Now look at the middle little bullet point where it talks about Germany. We're seeking an armistice, right? What's the first letter of armistice? An A. Look at the date. November 11th, 1918. What month number is November? Well, let's count. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November 11. A11. A11. What's the date? November 11th. So 4 ones. A1111. And what year was it? 1918. Look at the last two numbers. 18. So there are some people who saw this license plate and go, oh my God, it's like a weird thing that like it was destined, that the war was going to end on that day. And little fun little trick too. Guess what time the armistice happened? 11 a.m. So if you really, really, really want to get technical, it's 11111811 at 11 a.m. Yeah, so it's a real trip how all that happened. And again, there's some people who look at that and go, oh my God, it basically the signs are there that that's when the war was going to end. It's a weird little thing in history. Is that true? Who knows? I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no. That's for you to interpret, for you what you believe. But it's just a weird little thing. I thought you guys would enjoy that. So, question number 3. Do you believe the United States should have joined the League of Nations? Should we have joined up with Britain and France and Belgium and all them and basically being like the world's police type of thing? What do you think? Should we have or no? And tell me why. Okay. The writing prompt's on the bottom to help you out if you don't know how to start the sentence. Okay. So go ahead, pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we come to the exit ticket. Remember, you're going to pick one of these 3 questions. The first one says, why do you think Germany got such a bad and large punishment even though they didn't start the war? So you may want to go back and listen to that whole, if you weren't listening, if you just skip forward, you may want to go back and listen to that. The next question says, with the war mainly fought in Europe, what do you think the European countries are going to be doing for the next 10 years? And also, because remember, the war didn't happen in the U.S., what do you think the U.S. will be doing in those same 10 years? So explain your prediction. The last question says, do you believe that the war was predestined due to the license plates on the car of Archduke Ferdinand? You know, so again, if you skip forward and you didn't hear that whole thing about it, go back and listen to that. If you did, awesome. You should be able to answer this pretty well. Again, why do you believe this? Okay. So once you finish this exit ticket, you are done with this lesson, and that's it. All right. So with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something new. Okay. So you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.